Hey there, friend. Welcome to the Real Mom Manual podcast. This show is for moms who love their full lives, but are carrying a lot and are done with that unnecessary chaos, making it harder than it already is. I'm Michelle, mom of 3, including 1 with Down syndrome. And around here, we focus on systems, rhythms, and special needs support. Not perfect, not effortless, just making life simpler to manage. Less friction, that is the goal. Hey there, and welcome back to the show. Today we're talking about advocacy, and I am not talking about being the loudest person in the room or turning your life into a full-time case manager position with a color-coded binder and a nervous system to match. I am talking about advocacy that is sustainable. The kind that actually works when you're the primary parent, you're carrying the logistics, and you still have a whole family to run. And yes, I'm going to share some of my story today because this is one of those episodes that I want you to be able to send to a teacher, a therapist, or a family member and say, this is what it actually looks like in real life. Also, whether you're navigating a diagnosis or not, this still applies because advocacy isn't just special needs. Advocacy is how you communicate your own needs, how you protect your time, how you get support, how you stop everything from living in your head. So let's get into it. Before kids, I was very much a go with the flow kind of person. I trusted every professional. I didn't ask a ton of questions. I assumed they knew what they were talking about. If it was a doctor who was telling me something, it must be the next best step. And when I had my first baby, that showed up in a big way, right? Toward the end of that pregnancy, my doctor suggested, would you want to get things moving? Try a membrane sweep. I didn't really understand what it was at the time. She kind of explained it in the office. Painful, let's say. I don't know. Some people are like, oh, it didn't bother me. That thing was painful. Didn't ask what it was. Didn't ask what it could lead to. She said, oh, highly likely you'll go into labor within 24 to 48 hours. And I was over it. I was over being pregnant. So I said yes, because that's what I did back then, right? And that kick-started this chain of events where my outer water bag broke. If you didn't know, you have to. So I found that out. My inner bag did not break. So I was not contracting, but leaking fluid. And I ended up being induced. Labor over 24 hours. I got an epidural. I had told my husband, there's no way I'm getting an epidural. Absolutely no way. Those Pitocin contractions are otherworldly. So yes, I got an epidural. Everything wound up being healthy, fine. My daughter was here. But I left that one experience with the thought I didn't really have the words to explain just yet. I didn't even know that I could slow things down, ask questions, and just say, I don't think so. Then, 4 months postpartum, surprise, I'm pregnant again. And this time, I wanted to do it differently. Very differently, we'll say. I did the prep. I learned. I researched. I'm a researcher anyway. So for me, I think navigating motherhood was so new and, going to an OBGYN, they see this all the time. So I was just going to do what they were telling me to do. But now I had learned different. I got into hypnobirthing. I practiced breathing exercises, relaxation. I was determined to not have the same experience. I wanted a different experience. And then I went into precipitous labor with our second, which is basically the universe saying, funny plan that you had, you're going to have your baby in about 3 hours. It was fast, super, super fast. Contractions ramped up. My husband had went to bed around 10:30. I was up kind of nesting, kind of feeling like, I hope he comes really soon. Contractions started to ramp up around 11 o'clock as I am in our closet cleaning up and tidying. And by 1:30, I couldn't take it anymore and they were coming closer together. So I'm waking Andrew up I think we need to go. soon. So we get to the hospital and the triage nurse is acting like something must be extremely wrong because I'm contracting so hard. And then she checks me and I'm at an almost 8, and 45 minutes later, there's my son. So unmedicated, no time to overthink. I wanted to try the birth pool so bad, and that was not going to happen at all. And I am just going to be honest. I was proud. Not because it was unmedicated, not because that makes me somehow better or anything. I know that's some huge debate online. It does not, but I felt proud because I changed. I had changed and I was learning to use my voice. I was learning to own my choices. I had told my OB in the office, I do not want to be induced. I am still going to ride this out for another couple of days. I will be there for the ultrasound if it makes you feel better, but I'm going to continue to ride it out. I'm going to tell you, no, I will not set my induction date just yet because I don't want to go through that again. I am hoping things will progress. And they did. I was learning to advocate for myself. I didn't realize it yet, but I was starting to build that muscle that I would need for the next part of our story here, because my middle son was born full term. There were no scary ultrasound stories, no flag tests, no moments where the doctor leaned in and were like, we're concerned about this. No, nothing. He had some jaundice, pretty normal. Some kids have it sometimes, and we did the pediatrician follow-ups. We monitored it. We avoided the hospital light therapy. It resolved quickly out in the sun, Then at one of the early appointments, I cannot remember exactly which one. I want to say it was 1 or 2 months. I believe it was 1 month. Our normal pediatrician wasn't available. So we saw another doctor in the practice, and he did a really thorough exam, something we thought multiple nurses, doctors, my midwife that birthed him had already done. But he noticed something on my son's hands. Transverse palmar creases. They used to be called simian creases across hands. It is a crease like that is when, instead of having 3 distinct lines on your palm, if you look at them, most people have 3 lines on their palms. You have 2. My son had it on both hands. And this pediatrician said calmly, very calmly, almost too calmly, that it can be associated with genetic conditions, often Down syndrome, and that we should keep an eye on it. I want you to understand what happened next, because this is the part that is hard to explain unless you've lived it. It wasn't panic and it wasn't hysteria. I was slightly shocked and then in a loop. That thought got planted in my brain and I could not stop running it in the background daily, constantly. I'd watch him move and wonder, is that normal? I'd watch him roll and think, is this early, late? What does it mean? I would analyze his face in the mirror and as I'm feeding him and staring at him. And then I would hate myself for doing that, right? And here's like the weirdest part about it. Outwardly, obviously, life is still normal and he's still my child and I love him no matter what. I'm still changing diapers, feeding a baby, feeding a child, a toddler, and another child is running around. I still have to make dinner. My husband still has to go to work. But internally, I'm in this mental tab overload that I never agreed to. But here it is. And I think Andrew and I were both thinking about it. We talked about it and then we tried not to talk about it. And I did that classic mom thing where I kept telling myself like, no, he's fine. He's rolling early. He had figured out how to roll early around 2.5, 3 months just by using the weight of his head and flipping himself from belly to back and then back to belly again. So I'm saying, oh, that's early. There's no obvious markers. It's probably nothing. Stop thinking about it. But the thought was planted and the loop just continued. And that's the beginning of advocacy for a lot of parents. It's not the diagnosis moment. It's that loop before it, I think. Like something might be different. And you just get stuck in that, well, what am I going to do? Is this true? Is this happening? What's next? So eventually at his next appointment, I want to say around, we talked about it. Yeah, it had to be 1 month. We talked about it then at 2 months, and then the next one would have been 4 months. I want to say that's when it was, because that's, I remember talking to the doctor, and the doctor said, if you guys can't stop thinking about it, let's do the genetic test so we can rule it out. 2 weeks later, after we did the blood test, on a Friday afternoon, she called. Both kids were napping, which is great timing, thankfully, because otherwise, I'd have 2 kids screaming and crying in the background of a very stressful phone call. I remember sitting on the couch and I answered the phone. I knew it was her. I was waiting for the call. I knew it was coming. She told me it would take about 2 weeks. And I generally kept it together on the phone until the very end. I asked a couple of questions. She told me to let her know if I had any more questions. I hung up and I just lost it. Andrew was traveling. He was aware that, the call was going to come. And I called him and I said, I specifically remember sitting there, he has it. And I just completely lost it then on the phone. And Andrew, in the calm, composed way he is, I could tell he got a little choked up, but he was calm. He asked if I wanted him to come home. Again, he was traveling. And he's always my rock, which is just, it's what you want in your husband, right? I love him to death. And he just, has that way of being like, we're going to figure it out. It's going to be okay. And that was one of the first moments where I realized something that really still matters today. Advocacy is easier when you can stay steady. So many people think of advocates, I think, as like loud, fiery, obnoxious type of people. But you also don't have to be numb or detached. You just need to be steady so that you can take that next step, because the next steps can come quick. And this is where I'm going to be very clear about my tone, because I'm not doing the victim thing. For us, it wasn't, oh, this almost broke me. No, it was, holy crap, we're now a special needs family, I guess you could call it. What does that mean, and what is next? And how are we going to figure this out? So what does this mean for my son's health, future, school, therapies, our marriage, our daughter, our finances, our time? And also, what does it mean socially? Seriously, because you have that moment. At least I know we did. And I think probably every other family going through the same thing does, where you realize a lot of people don't get it. And some people are going to say things that are outdated or ignorant or just uncomfortable. And, we're pretty rational people. I'm not going to beat you up because you said something wrong or off or whatever. I mean, I don't want to be treated like a tragedy. We told our families, they were in shock and they were aware that it could be a possibility. But I think the confirmation really shocked both sets of our parents. And I think generation in that way plays a big role, because some people grew up when kids with disabilities were hidden away or literally, again, treated like a tragedy. So even if they love you, even if they love your child, their framework might not be really what's happening in the world today, And that's when you learn quickly too, that you're going to be educating and advocating whether you want to or not. It is what it is now. And it's not every day. It doesn't have to be in every conversation, but it just becomes part of your life. And here's the key. You don't have to do it like a martyr. You do it like an operator. And this is where my simplifying journey matters to a point, because by the time our diagnosis came, I had already started building a systems framework at home. And not because I'm naturally organized, because anyone that knows me growing up would say I'm totally the opposite. Because I hit a wall earlier in motherhood, and I'm not going to retell the whole, I had a gallbladder attack and had to go to the hospital, but I have been through that. My house is a wreck. I'm 2 months postpartum. Somebody has to help me with my kid. I am so embarrassed by my house. So I had already learned life gets kind of weird and fast. It just happens, And you need that your house needs to carry some of that weight. So when the diagnosis happened, I had days where I felt absolutely lost. But those home systems that we had started building meant the basics still ran with minimal intervention. Not perfectly, of course, but they were functioning. And that mattered because a diagnosis adds invisible labor, more scheduling, researching, paperwork, tracking, follow-ups, and a constant background hum of, am I missing something? Am I doing enough? So the way you survive that without burning out is not by being a superhuman, but containing the work. Here's what containment looks like in real life. One place where medical school notes live, whether that is digitally or in a combination, one digital phone note, Google Doc, Google Sheet, whatever it is, and or a notebook that works in conjunction with this. One running list of questions and who you need to go to ask them. Not 30 different tabs open, all of these different places you want to contact, whatever it is. One, then next step at a time. Not shoving all of this stuff into a weekend and burning yourself out. Because I don't know about you, but for me, I spiral when everything is everywhere. Containment is how you carry less. Andrew and I are both researchers by nature. So when we got the diagnosis, we went into that question mode. We went to the geneticist, and I will never forget it. She literally asked us, aren't you guys doctors? And no, we are far from doctors. We're just those people, I guess. We came with a list. We wanted terms defined. We wanted to understand better. So we asked many questions. And maybe, yeah, it was partly just coping, but it was also how we stabilized. Because when your brain is running in that loop, research gives you something solid. It turns that scary unknown into something you can name. Now, here's the warning label, because I know how this goes. Research helps until it becomes doom scrolling medical possibilities until 4 a.m. So we need an operator version of research. Research with a purpose. Stop when you get the answer you need. Operator questions look like, what should we monitor medically in the next year or follow up with? What are the most common supports that actually help, and where can I find them? What does the timeline look like for early intervention or school services or any other external supports in Arizona, my state, whatever it is? Who do I call first based on these results, this research, whatever it is? Not let me read everything that could ever happen and freak myself out. A lot of people, myself included in the past, think advocacy is confrontation. And sometimes, yes, you have to push. But most of the time, advocacy is consistency. It's follow-up, asking better questions, documenting, not forgetting little details. And if you're the primary parent, it's definitely the part that can feel unfair. You're carrying a role that you didn't expect to have to navigate or apply for. I get it. So I'm going to give you a very simple 4-thing framework to think about when it comes to advocacy. 1 is clarity. What are we actually trying to solve? What is the goal? 2, documentation. What was said? By who? What's the plan going forward? 3, follow-up. Email, confirm, schedule, remind, repeat, get it in writing. And number 4, persistence. Not urgency. It doesn't have to be done fast. You just need to be persistent. If you want scripts for these 4 things, again, we're talking clarity, documentation, follow-up, and persistence. Scripts that aren't cringy. Here's a couple. an email script for schools or services. Hi, I'm following up on our last conversation. Can you confirm the next steps and timeline in writing? A meeting script when you feel steamrolled, because I have heard of, and I know I'm going to go through that soon, but thankfully IEPs have gone okay so far. But a meeting script when you feel steamrolled. I want to pause and make sure I understand. Can you please explain that again and tell me what you recommend as our next step? When someone says, we don't do that. Okay, who does do that? And can you connect me to the right person, please? When you are overwhelmed by options, what are the top 1 or 2 actions that are going to make the biggest difference right now? That is advocacy, not yelling, not perfection, not knowing everything. It's being the person who keeps the thread. I also want to say this because advocacy isn't only for your child. It is also for you, especially in motherhood. We lose our ability to say what we need without apologizing. And for a lot of primary parents, the marriage dynamic becomes one person carries the work, the other person goes to work and carries a separate load of work. Nobody's the villain or anything. The system is just off balance. So advocacy inside your marriage looks like saying what's not working out loud, not hinting, not hoping they'll notice, and building systems that make responsibility visible. Practical example, instead of I need more help, try on Mondays and Thursdays, we have speech therapy virtually in the evening. I need you to own dinner and bedtime those nights, please. That's not emotional, it's operational. And yes, you can be kind about it and thoughtful. Kind doesn't mean vague, and that's a hard lesson for me to learn because my husband and I have talked about it. Just different dynamics growing up. I know I always have had a hard time communicating directly. And he has said in recent years that he has noticed a significant difference in he's not a mind reader. He can't read my mind. So how am I going to help myself and therefore us together is being direct but kind. So, as I said, kind doesn't mean vague. Let's talk about the part that makes parents feel very overwhelmed and want to quit when it comes to advocacy and the system. Because even when your kid has a diagnosis, support itself can still take a long time, unfortunately. There are wait lists, there are denials, there are agencies that do one piece, but not the other piece. And that's where people confuse advocacy with fighting. It's not about fighting or disappearing. Respite care is a perfect example. It took me over a year to get somebody to help me. Multiple steps, paperwork, meetings, waiting periods. It was not as I so maybe innocently, we'll say, I was going to say ignorantly, but innocently thought, fill this out and I will, with my son has a diagnosis, I'll fill it out and I'll get help within the next month. Unfortunately, reality really smacked me in the face and it doesn't work like that. And I had to learn that the hard way. And that matters because a lot of parents hear about services and then feel, as I did, like failures when it is not instant. You are absolutely not failing. The system moves very slowly and has a lot of steps. So the move here is work the process in small steps. Don't let it take up a ton of your time and week and all that. Do 1 day a week, 1 hour for advocacy tasks. Start there and then add as needed, but don't burn yourself out. If you do more, great. The goal is sustainability because it can take a lot of time. If you are listening and you're the mom who's doing school stuff, therapies, the paperwork, while your partner works long hours, I want to say this clearly. You are not bad at managing. You are carrying a workload that would try and fry most people. I get it. I'm there. It's very normal to feel like no one understands it because most people don't, and they don't see it. So if you've been feeling disconnected, resentful, snappy, or just tired, it's not a flaw. That's what happens when one person becomes the operating system for an entire family, which is why you outsource it. Your systems matter. Your support matters. Your follow through, something I also had to learn the hard way, matters. Not because you're trying to be perfect, because you're trying to make sure your kid gets what they need without you losing yourself. And I wouldn't say even just your kid. It's your kid, you, your husband, your other kids, everything working together without losing yourself. So let's talk practical. I know if you're like me, you like actionable tasks here. So if you're in the early stage, new diagnosis, new suspicion, or you're just realizing, this is more complicated, unfortunately, than I thought. I see you so much here. Here are the next steps. If your child is ages 0 to 3 or before 3, you can self-refer to early intervention. Every state has one. You don't need permission. You don't have to wait or anything. You look it up online and self-refer immediately. That is the best start for you to get help right away. Therapies, anything. They have a lot of resources and can help with evaluations and what's the next steps, all of that. If your child is over 3, start with your local public school district's special education department. Even if your child is in public preschool, even if you're homeschooling, the district still has responsibilities. So start there and then see where you go. Regardless of age, pick one of maybe these moves. Send one email to one of these contacts. Can you explain the next steps and timeline and where we should go from here? Make one call. Who do I contact to start services? How do I get services going? Join a class. This has been a huge help for me, and I've taken a lot of them now. One Zoom training. A lot of organizations host these. So for an example, I have the Autism Society of Greater Phoenix has been a huge resource for me, even though my child does not have autism. They have incredible Zoom classes, IEPs, 504s, other resources, what's available in the state. So if you check out some of these organizations locally for different diagnoses, as an example, local organizations for Down syndrome, we use and work with Gigi's Playhouse, which has been a monumental help for us. So, but again, there are for us like the Autism Society of Greater Phoenix, among so many other wonderful organizations that have resources for parents who have gone through similar things. There are groups like this that will match you if you decide you want to go that route with a mentor family. Also, if you're a new young family, whether or not your kid is a baby, just born, or 4, and you've just found out something, a new diagnosis, they'll send you resources and more information to get you started. Maybe one other thing to do, pick one question that you need to have answered before your next appointment, so you're prepared next time you go to the doctor or meet with a new evaluator, whatever it is. That is advocacy in real time. One step, then repeat as you start to gather and gain more information. So I want to close with this. Feels like it's been a heavy episode, but hopefully it's been a lot of help. Because I know I just felt so lost at first. Advocacy is not a personality type. I would never say I'm a very in-your-face extrovert, as I said, that I think a lot of people expect out of an advocate. It's a skill. If you were not raised to use your voice, or if you were raised like I was to keep the peace, you can still learn to be an effective, thoughtful advocate. It doesn't have to turn you into someone that you don't recognize either. You don't have to become aggressive. You don't have to become a full-time case manager. You just have to become consistent. Lower the expectations and start to understand what's involved, because consistency is what moves systems. And you can be strong and practical and calm and still be a mom who loves her kid fiercely, runs the house, and makes sure the supports are there. That's not martyrdom, it's leadership. If you're in the early stage of this, feeling lost and you don't know what you're doing, I promise you, you will learn. You will learn a lot faster than you think. And start with one step that will not overwhelm you. And then start with another one. And you'll look back a year from now and realize you built an entirely new skill set that you didn't have before. And look at where you are now. Last thing, and I'll go let you live your actual life. Advocacy is not a personality trait. It is not being the loud mom. It's not knowing all the acronyms. It's not getting it right the first time. It's staying in the game without letting the game take you out. So if you're new to this or you're back in it again because something changed, here is your permission that you don't have to do it all today. Just do the next step. And then you'll keep your spot at the table and you're going to keep moving. The system moves slow, and that's annoying. It is. But you can move steady forward. Follow up one time, document it one time, then go make dinner, keep being a good mom to your kids, because you already are. One last thing. 10 to the table tonight. This is one of my favorites. It takes less than 10 minutes to prepare, but it's a crock pot meal. So it's going to take time cooking all day, but your house is going to smell amazing. This is one of my favorites for the house's chaos, but dinner is going to be handled. It's crock pot beef stew with pot roast vibes, maybe we'll say. Yes, some people brown the meat first. I am not one of those people because I want the reason I'm using a crock pot is because I'm doing it one meal in one pot. So here's what I do. I grab a chuck roast or stew cubes. I'd actually rather have cubes. Whatever is cheaper is also a good option. Toss it right in the crock pot. Then I add carrots, celery, and sometimes I will add baby potatoes in there, or I'll do mashed potatoes on the side later. Here is the part that makes it taste delicious. 1 packet of Lipton onion soup mix, and then one of those Kinder's mixes. Like I like the Grandpa's pot roast, I think it is, whatever that one is, or a beef stew blend. Sprinkle both of those all over the top. Pour in some beef broth. Usually if I have chicken broth in the fridge, that's what goes in there. It does not have to be perfect high. 4 to 6 hours, depending, just check your meat. Low, let's say 8-ish hours. You know your crock pot better. So my crock pot's pretty old, but it would, when it's on high, it cooks stuff pretty quickly. Serving options with it. If you have time, mashed potatoes, regular or instant. I tend to go for instant, no shame. If you have no time, a microwave rice pouch. And as I've mentioned, you can not have to worry about any side starches if you add potatoes into the stew, if that's, what you like to do. And I'll do Panera mac and cheese once in a while on the side because that's one of our favorites. And listen, my kids hate potatoes, which both of my older kids, like, what kind of weirdo children don't like mashed potatoes? I don't know. Mine, apparently. So if you have tiny weirdos too who don't like potatoes, just serve it with noodles or rice or whatever works for them. This is warm, filling, and it makes your house smell like you've got your life together, even if you're struggling a little bit. So Thank you so much for listening. Go do one small advocacy step to get you started. Go enjoy your beef stew in the crock pot, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks so much for listening to the Real Mom Manual podcast. If something in this episode made you think that would actually help, share it with another mom who might need it. And if you want to help more moms find the show, taking 30 seconds to leave a review genuinely makes a difference. Until next time, keep it real, keep it simple, and I'll talk to you soon.